Saturday on Beyond the Vibe, I'm joined by Jonathon Linaberry, better known as the Bones of J.R. Jones.
My first cassette tape was given to me, and it was Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. I was born in 82. I think that record came out in 82, honestly. But I remember my dad gave me a cassette tape, I think, when I was about 6 or 7 or something like that. And man, I played the crap out of that thing to the point where, the cassette tape would, from too much use, would start stretching and get warbly, and you get your pencil in there and you'd roll it back into spot, into place. Come on, mama, stay wide. There was some debate whether it was going to be on the record, to tell you the truth.
Really?
But long and short of it was that I actually wrote that one. I remember sitting outside in the porch and writing it, and it just felt good. It was it was a very a lot of the songs felt a little heavier to me when I was writing them. Luckily, the rare instance where it kind of was written in a day, and I could tell you, it dictated the mood, it dictated the world that I wanted to live in. I wanna be your animal. I wanna be your animal at night.
Listen to Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Yeah.
Of course, he's considered like the father of Texas blues.
I'd never heard anything like it, and it wasn't about playing the instrument well. It wasn't about having. It wasn't about any of that. It was about just expression, and maybe that's why I got from those punk rock years to the blues, into the folkier side of stuff, because at the end of the day, the message is kind of the same. It's just about letting out what's inside and not trying to make it sound too pretty. Second time's a charm, as they say, or something like that. Yeah, right.
I appreciate your time anyway, man. And
no, man. Of course. Thanks for asking. Yeah.
No, it's a cool one. It's weird. I mean, I first was aware of you back only about a year or so ago. I'm kind of late to the party. I saw you from, I think it was what was it called? Vinyl Sessions. So I think you recorded
it was a video thing, right?
You with a kick drum.
Our Vinyl, I think it's what it's called.
That's it.
Yeah.
No, it's just the random kind of YouTube suggestion. You turned up.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, honestly, they did such a great job with that. I was blown away. It was I think it was only 2 hours or 3 hours or something like that. But man, they had the production, the level of production, I feel like for that was far more than I expected. And it just sounded great, and just great people to work with, super quick and efficient. And it's a good treat. Nice treat. So,
yeah. So I'm here with Jonathon Linaberry, better known as the Bones of J.R. Jones, as ominous as that may sound. Thank you very much for joining me.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a blast.
I like to kind of start things off by taking a look at a musician's early years, as of course, it shapes who they're going to go on and be. Was there a particular moment for you where it was like, this is what I want to do? I want to be a musician? Or did you kind of grow up in a musical household?
No, and yes. I never really thought I was going to be a musician, or intended to be, I should say. In fact, there was probably a decade where I stopped playing music altogether. In my, from 17 to 27 or so, when I was in grad school and undergrad and teaching more at the time, and I had played music in my teenage years and stuff like that. But yeah, I never really thought too seriously of it. Yeah, your typical punk rock bands and hardcore bands and stuff like that, but just angsty, angry music that a teenager would play. But yeah, this was sort of not an accident, but just, I don't know, I guess I didn't take it too seriously. And truth be told, it always sort of feels like this could be the last year. You know what I mean? Like not that I have any intention on quitting, but like, like there's always an ebb and flow to it. And some years are a little more difficult than others. And I'm the only thing that's driving this bus is me at the end of the day. So it's like how the emotional wear and tear on it, I guess it's always like that is a factor. And then also just the financial side of stuff, like just waiting for one bad quarter or 1 year to go by, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm bartending again. So that's just kind of part of the trade, unfortunately.
No, I can imagine.
So, yeah, sorry. And then to your second question, I did grow up in a musical household. I grew up in a very musical household. My mother was a classically trained pianist, and my brothers and I have two brothers, and we all had to take piano lessons growing up for about 7 years. And so, yeah, and I hated it at the time. But I mean, I hate to say it, my mother was 100% right. Like I think I regret, I stopped when I was 13, and I wish I kept going. I still play, but I can't, I would have gone, I feel like, so much further and like understood better music theory and, just had a rounder, full view of what music could be, I think, if I continued at that time. Yeah.
I think growing up, everybody has that first band or musician that they really kind of connect with, like it's their band. Did you have kind of one in particular for you? It was like, this is the one for me.
Oh man. Well, yes, there's a couple that come to mind, but and they're going to be cliches, I guess, but maybe that's why they're cliches, right? They're ubiquitous, universal. My first cassette tape was given to me, and it was Born in the USA, Bruce Springsteen. And I was born in 82. I think that record came out in 82, honestly. But I remember my dad gave me a cassette tape, I think, when I was about 6 or 7 or something like that. And man, I played the crap out of that thing to the point where, the cassette tape would, from too much use, would start stretching and get warbly. And like, you get your pencil in there and you'd roll it back into spot, into place. I don't know how old you are, but that's
so weirdly. I mean, I'm for the record, I'm 30. Okay, so I was like the 90s kid, but I was the kid that got the stuff from 10 years prior. So
okay, so you know what I'm talking about. But so that I can tell you, like, that record, especially for me at that time in my life, man, I don't know why it resonated with me. Being a whatever 8-year-old, 6-year-old at the time, but that was paramount to me in terms of like me consuming music. And I would say beyond that, like another record that I kind of came across was Joshua Tree. At that age, that, man, like simple guitar riffs, simple bass lines, but like beautiful melodies, and a lot of people can hate on YouTube, but man, I still think that record's great. I think it's a great record they put out, and I still revisit both of those things. And so I think those two records in particular are the ones that kind of pulled me in this direction.
When I was kind of reading through your bio and all the information, the thing that kind of struck me, and I'm sure will surprise a couple of others that are kind of getting into you. Obviously, you had your early years starting off by playing in punk bands. Now, of course, people would perhaps not associate that genre of music with what with the type of stuff you do now. Was that period just kind of like, I'm just kind of experimenting with different genres, I'm just playing around, seeing what fits?
No, I think in terms of like that era or whatever, I think I don't, I grew up in a rural suburb, kind of like semi-suburban area, and there wasn't much to do. And, you get together with your friends in their basements or garage and just make some really loud, horrible music together. And man, it was a blast. I don't think it was experimental as much as it was just community and connecting, and like, I think especially at that age, there's a lot of emotion and a lot of, figuring out how to express things in a healthy way. You know what I mean? I don't know about you, but I definitely had like a lot of anger back then, not for any, at least I don't think, who knows, but I can't think of a particular reason why I was so angry. I just knew that I was, pissed at the world, pissed at my parents, pissed at the authorities, basically pissed at everybody, and it was definitely like the healthiest way I think that I could have expressed some of that, and it was catharsis, and so, I do think when I break down what music meant to me then and what it served me, I still feel like it provides me that today, I guess, that catharsis and that emoting, for better or for worse, So it's just a little less loud and hopefully a little more in tune. Yeah, I don't know.
I imagine though, that kind of time, it just gives you so much experience, just going out playing to even a group of people, whoever they may be.
Yeah. I mean, there were a lot of bad shows. We played there was never like a venue, like a proper venue. There was a local community center that we'd rent out. And I think we rented out almost every weekend, and there'd always be a different rotation of local bands coming in. Some of them are really great hardcore bands, which I don't even know how we got them to come up to play, from the city or wherever they might be outside Richmond or New York or Philly, but most of the times it was just local teenagers, just like ourselves. And, like having that experience, and all the mishaps and everything that might come along with it. Yeah. I feel like my stage craft or whatever you want to call it was definitely like all the scariness of that kind of subsided after those years for sure. I think. Yeah.
I had read that, back in the day that you'd listen to Blind Lemon Jefferson.
Yeah.
Of course, he's considered like the father of Texas blues, and is, like back in like the 1920s. Mm-hmm. Was hearing him kind of a turning point for you in terms of like, going more towards this kind of rootsy, raw style that we kind of associate you with more today? Absolutely.
It took me a while to figure out what the connection was. I think, because at the time I like I said, I stopped playing music for, a significant amount of time. And, obviously like still loved and consumed music, whichever way I could find it. But, I will say, I remember the first time I heard him, I was in a friend's dorm room, and, we were working on a project, and she put on Blind Lemon Jefferson, and at the time, in terms of like blues music, I was obviously I was familiar with like Stevie Ray Vaughan and a lot of those later generational players, and not knocking them at all, because obviously Stevie Ray Vaughan is, God, just an incredible blues musician. But what captured me about that Blind Lemon Jefferson was that kind of rawness and ugliness. And, yeah, man, I just related to me. I don't know. It just kind of drew me back in, and, I'd never heard anything like it. And it wasn't about playing the instrument well. It wasn't about it wasn't about any of that. It was about just expression. And maybe that's why I got from like those punk rock years to the blues, into like the folkier side of stuff, because at the end of the day, the message is kind of the same. It's just about letting out what's inside and not trying to make it sound too pretty. It's just about, singing the blues, I guess. Yeah.
I find your work, even though it has this kind of overarching feel overall, you have lots of kind of different flavors in there. In some songs it has a bit more of kind of an indie feel, like the Good Life off the latest album. Whereas some other stuff is a bit more bluesy, isn't it? Like, do you kind of like to have this kind of freedom where you're not gonna kind of go, well, I'm just, I don't know, a blues musician, I'm just a rock guy or whatever? Do you like that kind of freedom?
Yes. And I can only speak for myself in this, but what I do believe, especially because I come from sort of like a visual arts background in terms of my studies or whatever you want to call it, I view music and as like my job as a musician. I feel like it would be silly of me to be like, this is the genre I play. This is sorry guys, these are the walls that I have for myself. And this is, I feel like the whole spectrum of human emotion is so vast, and there's so many tools and so many sonic qualities and soundscapes out there that should be utilized. And I think it's a hindrance to somebody to say like, I'm sorry, that's just out of my genre. And so like then even the music I listen to is pretty broad, in terms of everything I listen to. And so all that is input, all that is sort of like things I'm pulling from subconsciously or consciously. I'm trying to enter and kind of interweaving it into my own expression, I guess. So like Slow Lightning for sure, there's very little blues on that record at all, but I definitely don't think I could have gotten there without, writing more bluesy stuff earlier, a decade ago or whenever it was. So
was that kind of a conscious thing, or are you just kind of feeling, this is the right direction for me?
I think it's the latter. I can't speak to where I'm going, but it just felt right, and it felt like if it would be ingenuine of me to myself and to, I think, the listener to be like, to feel, to be beholden to prior records, So yeah, definitely just feeling it out as I move along in a dark room.
I mean, obviously we spoke about a bit of a kind of a shift in tone slightly. Did you look to approach Slow Lightning different? Obviously it's slightly different feel. Did you think, try something new, or?
Yeah. Well, I think in that sense, I did make a conscious choice to put myself in uncomfortable positions. I mainly write on the guitar, but I kind of forced myself, especially The Good Life, for instance, kind of forced myself to write that on a synth. I really wanted to try to force myself down a different road. And so in that sense, it was totally conscious, a lot of those choices. And just force myself to do something new. Yeah.
I read that the theme of the record is this power that you can't control. When you were writing the album, was there kind of a particular inspiration, a bit of a thought process behind that?
No, and in fact, I would say it took a long time for me to figure out what the record was about, I guess. And so I had a lot of these songs that took me a very long time to write, longer than usual, I'd say. And I didn't have, writing them and listening back to them, the demos, I didn't find any true theme through them all. And I was trying to find what it was about. And as I kind of paced it back together, I felt like, in the sequencing when the record was done. Basically, I think I kind of pieced together what the record was about, what I was trying to say. And so it's funny how like sometimes it just doesn't make sense until you put things in order and you're like, oh well, shit, yeah, that's what I'm after, I guess. But I was just too close. I think I was too close to everything to see what it was about.
Do you think? I mean, I had read that you of course used to live in New York, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think your approach or style has kind of changed with the environment that you've kind of moved in? I mean, I think you spoke about at some point it was quite an intense process at one point where you were writing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough to say because so much was changing in the world at that time. Like obviously it was during the bulk of it. The writing was done in 2021 and we were still kind of coming out of the pandemic and whatever it might be, or falling back into it or whatever the hell you want to think of it, and like, it was very tough to detach that from the writing process. And this is by any measurement, a pandemic record, because it's not what this is. But, I think you couldn't, in terms of just climate and mentality, I don't think you can separate the two, whether you want to or not. It's just where the record was written. So in that sense, it was very intense, just because, I had moved to a new spot, and was still trying to figure it out and all these other things. And, just searching a lot, I think. And I think this record is very much that for me. It's like, whether it's transitioning to something or searching for something. That's what it was. So,
of course, the opening track and the latest single, Animals.
yes.
Could you talk a bit about that song and kind of how it came about, the meaning behind it? I mean, it's one of my personal favorites off the.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's one of my wife's too. In fact, there was some debate whether it was going to be on the record, to tell you the truth.
Really?
But long and short of it was that I actually wrote that one. That was one of the ones that I was lucky enough to write. I can even tell you it was like August of 2022 or 20. It doesn't matter. But I remember sitting outside in the porch and writing it, and it just felt good. It was like, it was a very like, a lot of the songs felt a little heavier to me when I was writing them, but this one was luckily the rare instance where it kind of was written in a day. And I could tell you, it dictated the mood, it dictated the world that I wanted to live in. So, I mean, it was a joy to write for that purpose. And what it's about is, for me, it's nothing too serious, but it's about, it's kind of like about going out and like, just kind of like letting not the worst parts of you out there, but like the more like primitive side of you out there, and being okay with it, and whatever happens may happen, and you kind of, whatever comes down the line, you'll figure it out, and you get up and do it again the next day, I guess. Yeah.
I think there's something in that simplicity for me. And it's so feel good, like the way it kicks off. Of course, it gets the album gets a bit darker as it goes through, but
yeah,
there's something about that opening track. Another one that kind of struck me was The Flood.
Yeah,
of course, that's kind
probably,
of more serious.
That honestly was probably my favorite track on the record. Just in terms of the way it actually came out. Because when I demo these things and I arrange them and I do what I can to kind of replicate how I want it to sound in the studio, it's rare that they actually kind of fulfill where you want them, where they, how you envision them to their finished product of them. And that, I think on the record, that's probably the closest I got. And so I am particularly proud of that one, just because I felt I was able to articulate as closely as I wanted to what I envisioned when I wrote it. So yeah.
we touched on it a bit at the beginning. Obviously, you are the bones of J.R. Jones. Do you feel that kind of, obviously the writing's on you, everything's kind of on you. Is going in the studio? I mean, I believe are you completely independent at this point?
Independent. Independent in the sense that I don't have a record label, but for sure, but beyond that, obviously I have a great team that helps me, great manager, great people I work with for distribution and licensing and stuff like that. But in terms of the creative process, this record, The Slow Lightning and A Celebration, I worked with a very good buddy of mine, Kiyoshi, who in many ways has been like a sounding board for me. So, this isn't our exact mode of operation, but generally speaking, I write, I arrange, I demo, the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it might be. And I will write sort of, a manifesto, I don't know, a prompt, whatever you want to call it. And, about what I'm trying to say. And, he's a very good friend of mine and an incredible musician. And so we take those little nuggets and, he helps me articulate them in a way that I think that, it's just like putting it, I don't know how to describe it. He's a very talented musician, and I feel like he has a better grasp of musical theory sometimes than I do. And so when I work with him, he just has ability to help me translate that into something that gets it to that next level, I think. And beyond him, I already mentioned my wife. My wife isn't musically inclined in the sense that she plays an instrument or can sing very well. but she just has an incredible ear. I write songs pretty constantly, and a lot of them are crap. And she helps me weed through the trash, I guess, and find the nuggets that I feel like can be developed into something that's worth listening to at the end of the day.
I was going to go on and say there, I think, maybe it's, it must be good to just have somebody to have something to bounce off of.
Oh yeah. I think creating art is like, and treating it in a silo, so to speak, is could be a beautiful thing, but I feel like you might be doomed to repeat yourself. You know what I mean? You might, you're just kind of in this echo chamber. So I think, having a creative outlet and just having a sounding board or bouncing ideas off, and and I think it takes a lot of being self-aware to know the limitations of that, and knowing, I know what I want at the end of the day, and I know where I want to end up, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of arguments and a lot of heated discussions with people I trust to get there, I think. Even if I don't use their ideas or whatever it might be, I think all that conversation lends itself to a better product. So, yeah.
A question was that to finish on, that I ask everybody that comes on. It's a bit of a hypothetical one. If you could tour with one band or musician from the past and one from the present, who would they be?
Where are we assuming? Sorry, I'm gonna add this. There's a couple baseline questions that go along with this for me. Are we expected, when you say tour them, are we expecting them to be nice people, or it's more about just being around them as a creative force? You know what I mean?
I think like, like you've got the keys to the car, so you can say, like, wouldn't it be cool to, I don't know, like play with such and such a person?
Oh yeah.
Like experience this, or even just like see how this person thinks and works. I mean, that'd be.
Well, I think Tom Waits for me.
Okay.
Is very much at the top of that list for me. I just think he's an incredible artist in everything that he does. I'm, just the world that he creates, and I don't know. God, he's still alive. He doesn't tour anymore, unfortunately. God, I wish he did. I've never seen him play. But that, whether that's past Tom Waits or current Tom Waits, doesn't make a difference to me. I just think I'm a bigger fan of his later work. But man, he has just done his catalog is just unreal to me. As far as like someone from the past, like truly in the past, I would say, and I say this more so because of the world that they were touring in, and I'm so curious about how music was listened to back then. But somebody like Howlin' Wolf, or along those lines, because man, I feel like, and it's easy to romanticize eras in music, but you go back and you read about it, and you watch the live performances you can find on YouTube or whatever it might be, and it just felt like people really consume music in a different way, in terms of the enjoyment factor. You would go out, the clubs were more relaxed, and it was about just going out to see a show, and you weren't paying $300 for a ticket or anything like that. It was just about the music. So I think so I say Howlin' Wolf just as an example, but any like bluesmen from that era, I would love to be on the circuit with, and just not even be forced, not even to play with him, but just to be in the room with him, would be a treat. Yeah.
I mean, strangely, I did speak with a guy that did support Howlin' Wolf as a kid.
No kidding.
Yeah. Weirdly. He's a guy called Jim Cregan. He played with Rod Stewart for a long, long time. But
amazing.
Yeah, but he was describing that era. I mean, what you were talking about there, and it feels like the whole landscape is just different. It's like apparently Howlin' Wolf. Apparently he was just like this real kind of regular guy, and he was just like, just go out there and enjoy yourself and stuff. And it's like, this free thing. But I know what you mean. It's more of it felt like, well, I imagine it would have felt like more of an event, like I don't know, going out to the theater or something, it's kind of like it's a thing.
I also think, and obviously we have a lot of modern conveniences that have come over the years, but I think part of what we're talking about perhaps is the idea that like this was the event. I couldn't go. You couldn't go to YouTube and catch these shows, or sign on and stream it. Like this is like who knows when they're coming back? Who knows if the show's ever going to come back through here? Like, you better get to the show, and you better enjoy yourself, type thing. You know what I mean? And it was just, I think, it just made it that extra bit special. So yeah.
Is that something kind of that you like doing? Playing live. Because it's I think that's one of the magical things about live music still, it won't be exactly the same every night, and you can kind of take that away with you,
Yeah. I think as someone who goes to shows, absolutely. As a touring musician, I love what I do, and I recognize how fortunate I am that I get to do this for this moment in time, however long it can last. At the end of the day, some days are harder than others, and sometimes it's tougher to get on stage and give 110% when you don't have 110% to give. So it's tough to have that perspective after the fact, to step off stage and be like, that was we did something great there. That was something special. That was a one of a kind experience. Because sometimes, your head's just not in the right mindset. It's tough. It's tough to get beyond just the physical exhaustion that might be sitting in on you. You know what I mean? So
it's interesting hearing that, because you hear, like, I've seen it happen as well. Like, you get a fan that will come up to a musician and they'll go, "Oh, that was a brilliant night," or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, thank you," and then they walk away and they're like, the musician, they're like, "Oh, I thought it was bloody awful." Like, it just didn't happen for me.
Well, personally, and again, this is me just being me, perhaps, but like you would hope that 80 to 90% of the time the artist feels that way, because personally, I don't ever want to be satisfied with what I do. I don't like, oh God, you get complacent, you get lazy, you get, like I want to be angry at myself, and I want to be like, I can do better next time, and all these other things. As long as it doesn't, as long as you recognize that it's just that it was just that moment, you know what I mean? And it doesn't hopefully weigh on you, to the next show. Every show is a chance to do something better and hopefully engage with the audience more. And I realize I'm contradicting myself a little bit with what I was saying before, but it's a complicated feeling. You know what I mean? Like some nights I want to give it all and I want to be there for everybody. And I can be that performer, that artist, that musician. And other nights, like you just can't, like you can't,
Well, that's what makes you human, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
I mean, I think, I think a common thing I end up saying quite a bit here. I feel that, the beauty is in the imperfections, though.
Absolutely.
I think nowadays for a while at least anyway, there was this kind of striving for pure perfection, and then it kind of went a bit robotic for a while. Like it was so perfect, like maybe the production or something, that it didn't sound real anymore. So I think, if a musician makes a mistake, I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with it,
Yeah. It's never easy to accept that as a musician, but it is something special. And as long as you don't let it ruin the show, you know what I mean? I'm not going to name names here, but I remember seeing a musician years ago at Irving Plaza, and I was really excited to see him. And he was a British musician, and he was touring here in the States. And he had generally he was a solo musician, but he brought a band out. And throughout the show, there were a couple flubs and accidents or whatever you might want to have, but again, like it didn't ruin the night for anybody in the audience. But there was a point in the show when he stopped the music to berate the band.
Wow.
And it just like you said, like, those imperfections, it's tough to get beyond them as a performer, but like you can't call them out. You can't like, don't yell at your bandmates on stage because of some silly accident, like you move on, you laugh about it. You're creating, like, it's all about that night. You know what I mean? So yeah, I remember taking that in and like, man, I will never do that. Whatever, worst case scenario, like just the guitar could catch on fire, drums could fall apart, like just finish the song and move on. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're all there to share that moment, and who knows what you can come out of it with. So, yeah.
Well, this is it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining me anyway. And
hey, it was great to chat with you, Ryan. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Yeah.
It's been cool. Of course, for those that want to catch the latest album, Slow Lightning, you can via the links in the description below. I mean, we're big on vinyl here, so I believe it's on vinyl, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it's on vinyl. Yes, it is. So I have it up on my site, of course. But if you're ordering from the UK or you're any place overseas, I am in the process of setting up a European distribution center, which will hopefully help with all the shipping costs. So that should be up, and the vinyl will be there in about 4 to 6 weeks or so. But if you're feeling rich and you want to ship it overseas, you can do that on my site too. Yeah. Yeah,
of course. I mean, by the time this comes out, it might be there and available. So it's always.
I hope so. We'll cross our fingers. We'll cross our fingers for that. Yeah.
But yes, thank you very much, Sean.